In October of 2022, I was in the mood for a horror game and played through Silent Hill 3 for the first time. What I didn't expect was that when I finished the game, I would say to myself, that was one of the best games I've ever played. And I am not the only one who said this. I discovered the incredibly passionate community behind these games who all share with each other how Silent Hill has changed them and their lives. It is one of the few game franchises that I've seen can affect people on such a personal level. And it's why I consider Silent Hill to be one of the most important and influential pieces of horror media ever made. So, where is Silent Hill? It has been over 12 years since the last mainline release of Silent Hill. There's a remake on the horizon and some smaller projects have come out recently, but this franchise has been near radio silent for over a decade.
This thing broken?
Why? Lots of people have already covered the cancellation of Silent Hills and the change in leadership at Konami, and whilst those were absolutely key factors here, I rarely see people bring up that last year, that final year of Silent Hill, where 4 major releases came out. What was meant to be a celebration of Silent Hill effectively killed it, with these 4 almost unanimously being agreed upon to be the worst the series has to offer. So, what are these? How did 4 releases do so much damage to Silent Hill that the franchise is still recovering from it to this day? Let's take a look at the 13th anniversary, 2012, the year Silent Hill went silent. Around the time of the anniversary, HD collections of old games were everywhere. They're relatively cheap to make and fans really like them, because now they can play their favorite games from the previous generation in a higher resolution with an added widescreen. It's just nice to have these old games packaged together in HD, and collections like these are kinda hard to fuck up. Collections like these are kinda hard to fuck up. The HD collection is infamous for how incredibly bad and unrespectful it is to the original 2 games it's remastered. It was made by a team who had never worked on any horror game before, had never even done a port before, who were handed incomplete code with an extremely tight deadline. Now go ahead and remaster 2 of the most beloved games of all time.
Forget you.
Hijinks gets a lot of crap from fans for how this collection turned out, but I think that's a little unfair. Not to say they did a great job here, but I think the one to actually blame is Konami. They were asking the impossible, and even a highly experienced studio would not have gotten great results under these circumstances. With that being said, let's take a look at what's actually here. I'm going to give this collection a very fair shot, and I'll be judging it on 2 different things. 1, are the remastered aspects of the collection any good? And 2, are these valid ways for newcomers to play these games? Right now, this collection is the only way to legally play Silent Hill 2 and 3, and I think it should be judged on that. Especially with the remake of Silent Hill 2 now being a thing. Tons of people will want to give that original a try, and that will quickly point them to this. So let's start there. Silent Hill 2 in the HD collection. Silent Hill 2 is often regarded to be the very best Silent Hill game and one of the best games ever made. Now, whilst I personally like 3 a little better, I cannot deny how truly great Silent Hill 2 is. Some people call this game therapeutic for those going through depression, and you know what? I kinda agree. I'm keeping it as spoiler-free as I can here, but the story in Silent Hill 2 is so deep and well told. The atmosphere is dense, and above all, the game is absolutely terrifying. There's this specific part in the middle of the game where you go down this seemingly endless staircase just to finally end up at a door. The whole experience of walking down this dark staircase just to end up here made me feel so wary of what was behind it. A large part of the game beyond this door is where the level design becomes very abstract, and it's genuinely the closest I've ever seen a game come to feeling like an actual nightmare. It's phenomenal. Silent Hill 2 is incredibly special. In fact, it means a lot to a lot of people. If even the tiniest detail is different in a subsequent release, this fandom will never let that go. The HD collection was doomed from the start in that aspect because they screwed up a lot of stuff. Now, people always nag about the roads being too clean now, but like, who is going to notice that on their first playthrough? I don't think the roads being too clean will impact anyone's experience playing this game for the first time. A bigger problem in my opinion is the fog. What was once a deep fog that felt like it could swallow you at any second has now been replaced with a wall. There's some like transparent PNGs roaming around that try and fail to poorly mask it, but it's just not the mist that it once was. The HD collection has some actual pretty big issues attached to it, but I always see the community focus on the smaller ones. Like this sign. Yes, it's really funny, and it's completely out of place, but truth be told, you quickly walk past this sign in the opening, and that's it. There are no other out of place changes like this in the entire game. And even though this is dumb and immersion breaking, again, it doesn't ruin the game for me. It helps that it's in the very beginning, so you can quickly forget about it. You still have a whole great game ahead of you. A game that had amazing cutscenes when it came out, which now not only look outdated, but have also been grossly smeared out and zoomed in to make it fit the widescreen. These cutscenes are borderline unwatchable and are probably my biggest overall problem with this collection, because I can see this severely impacting, if not ruining, large parts of the game for a first-time player. Imagine buying your favorite movie on 4K Blu-ray, and it ends up looking like this. Oh, and the characters are also dubbed by new people. Here's Shawnee! The HD collection has an option for playing with new voice recordings, which it will ask you every time you start the game if you want to play with them. And these new recordings aren't great.
Eddie? You're... James, we, met in the apartment building?
Yeah, I remember.
Okay, the thing is, the performances themselves are good. They're well done by the actors, but the new voices don't match the characters and the tone of the game at all.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
Again, no discredit to the actors. They've done a good job here.
Besides, it's what we deserve.
No, not like you.
Are you afraid? I'm sorry.
I think the fault lies with the director, who heard these voices and said, yep, that's James alright, that's Eddie, that's Maria.
My name is Maria.
Thankfully, there is still an option to play with the original voices, which are unaltered, and I will give this collection some credit for including those.
I'm kind of lost.
Lost?
It could have been very easy for them to just put in the new voices and say, that is just the way Silent Hill 2 is now. Back to the cutscenes though. It is so jarring when the rendered scenes jump back to an in-game cutscene, because the HD collection is just not able to recreate some of the same atmosphere. Especially when there are some glaring mistakes, like I can straight up see the edge of the lake, and that is the last thing I should be focusing on in this scene. It's tragic that a lot of the more extreme mistakes are during really important moments. Mild spoilers here, but there's a pretty important moment on a lake near the end of the game which looks like absolute garbage now. I'm almost convinced that the texture is just missing or corrupted. It doesn't help that the particles coming off the boat also look like trash. There's an overall particle issue throughout the entire game now. None of them look particularly great. The HD collection feels like it's being held together by duct tape, and like it could break at any minute. Constant big and small issues everywhere that keep breaking immersion. That being said, let me talk about the actual good here. Don't worry, this'll be quick. It is admittedly really nice to have the game in widescreen now with an HD resolution. The game can be pleasant to look at when nothing is glitching out. And the problems with the HD collection, at least for Silent Hill 2, are mostly visual. I can't think of many things gameplay-wise that's been broken or changed. which can both be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on who you ask. Look, I like stuff like the more clunky controls and the combat, but the boss fights, for example, have always been the worst part of any Silent Hill game for me. I would have loved to see these be changed up, but just like most of the gameplay, it's been untouched. The game also has achievements now, which is sure to appeal to somebody. It doesn't appeal to me that much, especially when you have tone-deaf achievements like childhood trauma, but somebody might get a kick out of achievement hunting these games. And hey, if there's one part that's actually completely intact, it's the Born from a Wish DLC. I didn't experience any problems in this, aside from the mist still looking like trash. Most of it though is just Born from a Wish with widescreen in HD, which is what this collection should have been. Silent Hill 2 in HD with widescreen. And to be fair, it's not like this collection never achieves that. Here's the thing with Silent Hill 2 HD. It's not good. It's messy. You will find bugs and problems that might take you out of it. But at its core, under all the issues, it is still Silent Hill 2. The original release on the 360 and the PS3 has a lot of frame rate issues and long load times on top of everything else. But somehow, this was made backwards compatible on the Series X, which means those long load times and frame rate issues are gone. If you have a Series X, absolutely wants to play Silent Hill 2 on a console in HD with a widescreen and you don't mind any of these issues, go for it. At the end of the day, you will still have more or less played Silent Hill 2. But that is an extremely specific audience. For most people, I would just say emulate the game on PC. It takes a little bit to learn PS2 emulation, but Silent Hill 2 is worth spending the 20 to 30 minutes learning how to run it on PC, instead of spending $500 on an Xbox Series X so you can play a broken version. We're only about halfway through this collection, and I'm already struggling to find good things to say about it, and that's very scary when you're about to talk about your favorite horror game. Silent Hill 3 is such a special game to me. I almost don't want to see how they ruined it. The show must go on, I guess. Here goes nothing. Wait. Why didn't it ask me if I wanted the new voice recordings or not? So, Silent Hill 3 does not have an option for the original voices like Silent Hill 2 has. You are forced to play with the new voice recordings, which is probably the worst start this collection could have ever given me because that completely kills the game. Heather is one of my favorite characters ever. She's one of the strongest and most inspiring characters I've ever seen and played as in a video game. Heather was actually named after Heather Morris, the person who voiced her and did the performance for the motion capture. Morris is half the reason why this character even worked so well for me. Her performance is vulnerable, yet so powerful, with a lot of nuances in the way she talks and performs her body language.
A detective? Really? Well, nice talking to you.
Heather in the HD collection sounds like a parody of herself. She's more of a generic, angsty teenager, and it makes me feel like they didn't really understand her character at all.
If I knew that, I wouldn't be so confused, would I?
And again, this is not the fault of Amanda Wynn Lee, who does give a fine performance. She does get surprisingly close to the original sometimes.
I'm fine, so just get out of here and leave me alone already!
I just don't think most of it fits Heather specifically.
What should I do?
Hell if I know.
Especially when the motion capture performance is still the same. Heather Morris actually talked about how the way she performed Heather through motion capture greatly influenced the way she recorded her lines for the character.
Did you do this? You're late. But why? Why?
And that becomes so much easier to appreciate once you replace those voice lines with someone else's.
Looks like God didn't make it.
I shouldn't have said you reminded me of a guy like him.
Well, maybe if you had compared me to your daughter.
Now that I think about it, most of the characters sound like parodies of themselves. It's like everyone is trying to sound cool and suave now. I really don't like it.
No, you make me sound like some kind of unwanted pest.
Sorry. Now wait here.
Is this Leonard?
That's the murderer's name. Not my name. I'm not your beloved Stanley either.
You've got me mistaken for someone else. Today's not
mistaken.
The only one I kinda like is Claudia. She still mostly feels like her original self.
God is growing within you. You despise me, don't you?
The voices weren't the only thing that was changed though. Sometimes even the dialogue has been rewritten to the point that it changes aspects of the characters. Lines like these.
I'll kill you, you bitch!
I hate, because it's obviously written to make Heather sound cooler and more rage-filled. She originally said, "I'll get you for this." Now you might think, wow, you must be a super fan if you remember that line. Well, yes, but it's also easy to remember when the subtitles still show the original line.
I'll kill you, you bitch!
God, this whole remaster feels way sloppier in general compared to Silent Hill 2 in the collection. A lot of the sound effects are straight up missing, which lessens the impact of some important scenes.
Don't talk about my dad like that!
And just like with Silent Hill 2, the game suffers from almost constant graphical hiccups, but they're way more abundant here. Like, why does the screen glitch every time I use an item? How do you even get a shadow to look that pixelated? In fact, all of the shadows are completely broken. Why are the animations on the dog so much slower? Why do some rooms have this weird trail effect when you move around? Why are all sound effects slightly out of pitch? How is every blur effect in the game broken? And I know I've already talked about how bad the fog looks in Silent Hill 2, but it's worth repeating because it's just as bad, if not even worse here. But again, I will give some credit where credit is due. The game tends to look really sharp now, and the whole widescreen thing is really nice. Some interiors look amazing. I love how the bakery, the restaurant, and Heaven's Night look here, and the monsters tend to look really good as well. I don't know, maybe I'm just harder on this game because it means so much to me. Don't play this version. Please. Find any other way to play this great game because this does not deserve to be your first experience with it. Whereas Silent Hill 2 in this collection felt like it was being held together by duct tape, Silent Hill 3 feels like it's on fire. It's a constant mess of issues that feels disrespectful to the original game. Silent Hill 2 in the collection is also bad, but for what it's worth, I feel like more development time was spent on it. Silent Hill 3 can feel like no one even worked on it. The HD collection is a complete failure of a release, and it's kinda crazy that Konami is still trying to sell it. If you want Silent Hill to come back from the grave, you have to make sure that people can actually see and experience for themselves why this franchise is worth bringing back. The HD collection doesn't do that. Release a new collection of just emulated versions of Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, and 4 and call it like the Masterpiece Collection or something. You've just done this with the Metal Gear Solid re-releases. I know you're able to do it, because whatever a second attempt at a collection may be, I know for a fact that it will be better than this. This can never happen again. Frankly, it is shocking that the HD collection is still being sold on something. This should have been forgotten and buried. What a sour way to start off this celebration. But there is still hope, because next up we're looking at a new mainline Silent Hill game. As of recording this, Silent Hill Downpour is still the most recent entry of Silent Hill. I'm always interested and excited when a new developer gives their take on a classic franchise like this. So let's put it in the Series X, because just like with the HD collection, it's backwards compatible, and start playing Silent Hill Downpour. I've seen the conversation around this game slowly change over the years. What was once considered the universally agreed upon worst Silent Hill is now seen as a flawed yet solid and somewhat underrated game. And I can definitely see why. If there's one thing I can say about Downpour is that it's absolutely trying its best. The story is honestly one of my favorites of the entire franchise. Murphy struggles with imprisonment, judgment, and exploring how the human mind is affected by that is all very well done here. I find the game to be so daring visually. Levels can feel like they were ripped from Psychonauts, which I'm not against at all. It's more surreal than I think a lot of the other Silent Hill games are willing to go, which gives this game its own unique flavor and place in the franchise. Downpour also completely nails the atmosphere. I'm impressed by the fact that this is the 8th mainline game, yet the developer still found a way to make walking around the deserted, misty town of Silent Hill feel refreshing with varied locations and new set pieces. Not to say all the graphics are amazing, the character models are a little ugly for example, but the environments do look really great. And there's a ton to do in them. This game is a lot more open than the previous Silent Hills, with the town now including side quests and a ton of houses you can go into for items. Exploring the town like this is a lot of fun. You can find some really neat stuff and hidden Easter eggs if you look hard enough. This is an honest attempt at making a modern Silent Hill game that treats the source material with respect, and for that I want to absolutely applaud and praise it. This is a tough franchise for any developer to tackle. You're working with a psychological horror series that is renowned for how scary it is and how well the stories are told. I can't imagine the pressure Vatra Games must have felt to not only make a new Silent Hill game, but to make one that dares to break conventions and do it within the budget and time limit that Konami gave them. That is something I will never criticize with any developer, and I have immense respect for what was attempted here, which makes it all the more painful for me to say, I think this is a bad game. Every aspect of the gameplay is flawed, unpolished, unintuitive, and frustrating. Let's start off with the thing that has never been the best aspect of any Silent Hill game, the combat. Downpour has incredibly slow and rudimentary combat, which is definitely intentional. Most horror games do this. Hell, Silent Hill has always done this. It's an effective way to make the monsters more threatening and make the player feel more tense. But the problem here is that this game will just regularly throw like 7 enemies at you at once. This combat is designed to focus on one enemy at a time. You only have a simple attack and block option, with the camera snapping to the nearest monster, leaving your back open to just get pummeled by the others. And these monsters are aggressive. Once you're spotted, they will chase you all around the map. They never break off, and once they've got up with you, they will take huge chunks out of your health because they rarely ever stop with their attack animation. Speaking of health, Downpour doesn't have a health bar. You will just have to look out for how bloody Murphy looks and listen to how he's breathing. I know that this is immersive, but it was such a headache to have that on top of the clunky combat. Healing also doesn't have an animation. It's just a subtle sound effect, so sometimes in the heat of battle where 1,000 sound effects are playing all at once, I wouldn't hear it and would waste another health item by healing again. On top of that, weapons now have durability. I know Origins did this as well, which is a game I actually really like. And on the face of it, weapon durability is not a bad idea for a Silent Hill game. But I find the variety of weapons to be very lacking. And because you're constantly forced into these combat scenarios, you just get into this loop of blocking, attacking, your weapon breaks, find a new one in the same room, repeat. This game doesn't justify this mechanic to me. It adds nothing to the gameplay loop but tedium. Downpour also features these chase sequences that are incredibly annoying. Every one of them consists of running away from this vague, unexplained red orb of energy that slows you down and drains your health once you get too close. Which wouldn't be too bad if the level design during these sections wasn't atrocious. They're designed like a maze that you're just gonna have to hopelessly run run through until you stumble upon the exit. There's no strategy here. It's never fun, it's just something the game requires you to do. All these problems are boosted by the fact that Downpour is just really janky in general. Keep in mind, I am already playing the best possible version here by playing it on the Series X, and I still get stutters. Long load times, janky and stiff movement, texture pop, and broken enemy AI and glitches. Downpour just lacks so much polish. The inventory is unbearably slow and unorganized. Some sections are so insanely dark that I can't even see where I'm going. Stupid mechanics like this door zoom in every time you open a door, or this cliché balancing mechanic really breaks the flow of the game. I also really miss the monster designs of the previous games. The monsters of Silent Hill were always symbolic of the main character's personal fears and struggles, but these are just generic designs that have nothing to do with Murphy. Except for the Boogeyman and the Wheelman, which I actually really like as the big antagonists of this game. I love how the Boogeyman is a representation of the people that haunt us in our lives. And I also love the little details they added in throughout the game that's more personal to Murphy, like the radio now sounding more like police chatter. And the patrol cars you have to avoid throughout the town. Man, and I love how the game visually presents itself, with the live transitions to the other world, and the shifting camera angles, and Downpour is such a tragic game. It's the equivalent of that one Simpson episode where Bart studies really hard for a test, but ends up failing anyway.
I really tried this time. I really tried.
I want to like this game. No, I want to love this game. There is so much effort, passion, and creativity lovingly poured in here that I keep seeing through the cracks. The cracks of this huge wall of problems that not only hold this game back, but flat out ruin it for me. I didn't like playing Downpour at all. It was annoying, constantly frustrating, and confusing. But I saw the potential in it. The potential for a great modern Silent Hill game that's buried deep within. I feel so incredibly bad for this game. It really does try its best and wants so desperately to be good. I will say, for all the problems I have with it, this is the only game in this video I can truly recommend. There is something worth experiencing here, especially for Silent Hill fans who haven't played it yet. So if you have a Series X, give it a go. Somebody really tried here, and that's worth your time. This celebration is starting to feel brutal. Maybe we just need something completely new, something to refresh ourselves. Enter the Book of Memories, which... Right. I couldn't find a physical copy because nobody bought this game. I'm just gonna hold Touch My Katamari for this section, and we're all gonna have to learn to live with that. Alright, hear me out. What if Silent Hill was more like Diablo? That is probably not what you expected me to say, because why would you? Why would you ever think I was gonna say that? It's because they made it. It exists. Well, this is Touch My Katamari, but it exists. Sometimes a franchise will do something so incredibly bizarre that I can't help but be fascinated by it. Whether it's Banjo-Kazooie being turned into a vehicle-building game, or Konami attempting to turn Bomberman into this really cool, edgy, futuristic soldier, I will never not be intrigued when a franchise has the guts to do something absurd like this. And that goes for Book of Memories as well. I was definitely intrigued by the idea of a Silent Hill dungeon crawler, and having it be on the PS Vita only added to that feeling. I don't know if anyone else is like this, but the PS Vita as a whole is such a unique and interesting platform to me. The Vita is a mainstream, popular enough console that has always felt like it was operating in its own self-created space. Can you tell I'm stalling? I have so little to actually say about Book of Memories. It's one of the most boring games I think I've ever played. It's monotonous, uninspired, and it doesn't really have anything going for it. Which is weird, given this was made by WayForward of all developers, who I kinda associate with fun, colorful ideas and gameplay. Very much feels like a paycheck for them, which, to be fair, WayForwards aren't strangers to projects like that either. There's nothing wrong with a developer doing a game project for some money to keep the company afloat, by the way. But like, does the end result have to be so generic? This is dangerously close to feeling like a free mobile game. The only difference is that I spent over 100 euros on a PSTV so I could play it for this video. And let me tell you right now, Book of Memories is not worth that. The game has repetitive combat that essentially boils down to button mashing. Every room is the same thing of just defeating every enemy, which the game itself started to struggle with at a certain point, because it was running out of new ways to say kill all the enemies. I straight up entered a room once that just said, them. There's also a puzzle at the end of every level, which is the same idea every time, of putting 5 objects from lightest to darkest. That's not even a puzzle anymore then. Tons of cheap fan service too, like the ghost from Silent Hill 4, Pyramid Head, and famous lines from previous games.
Haven't you seen those monsters?
They look like monsters to you.
Look at these menu buttons for the shop. Did anyone even care? This whole game just has this whatever energy to it.
You're not like them, are you? You have a good soul.
The levels all feature invisible traps. Some just damage you, others slow you down to 90% of your speed, or they'll give you a shield for like 10 seconds. But these traps are placed in the most random of locations without any rhyme or reason. And why does so much have to be controlled via the touchscreen? I'm playing an action game, right? Why do you keep insisting I take my fingers from the controls so I can add something to my inventory or use a fucking health item? Half of the time I accidentally close the backpack instead. And you know those deep, haunting stories and setups Silent Hill is known for? I got a letter from my wife to meet me, but that's impossible because she died of an illness 3 years ago. I'm being followed by an obsessive cult who thinks I'm the key to rebirthing their god when I just want to live my own life. I woke up in my apartment one day with locks on my door and windows. I can't communicate with the outside world anymore, and now a mysterious hole has appeared in my bathroom. How about, boy, I sure do hope I get that promotion at work.
Well, keep working hard and someone is bound to notice.
At this rate, I'm not sure I can take it much longer.
Man, I sure do have a crush on this girl. I hope she likes me too.
Seems like girls just aren't interested in me.
Nope, untrue.
Really?
All delivered to you with Oscar-worthy performances.
Derek, honey, are you happy?
Yeah, I'm just gonna be fully honest here. I did not finish this game. I got so bored by it and just wanted to do something else. How long does this even take to beat? Oh my god. That's like the longest Silent Hill game by a mile. And it doesn't even have a Katamari. Yeah, this celebration is ruined. We've had 3 extremely flawed and broken games, and the only thing we have left now is a movie based on Silent Hill 3. Maybe, just maybe, this is good. No, but this is the last thing, and I desperately want to find something good here. It's an adaptation of my favorite horror game. There has to be something worth praising. I want to judge the film on 2 different things. How good is it as an adaptation of Silent Hill 3, and does it work as its own horror movie? To answer that second question, I asked my brother Mark to watch the movie with me. He's got his own YouTube channel where he makes Lego animations, which you should definitely check out. I'll put a link in the description. I wanted to see how someone who had no experience with Silent Hill and didn't know anything about it would react to the film. So let's dive in one final time and watch Silent Hill Revelation. To present this collection of scenes in HD to you, I bought the movie on Blu-ray. That way we can look at it through the highest viewing quality. The film opens up the same way the game does, with a dream sequence in the lakeside amusement park. But instead of it being atmospheric with a sense of looming dread, the film immediately wants to be shocking and cool looking. Like, this is the first minute of your movie, calm down. Heather then wakes up at the diner. No, wait. She wakes up at home with her dad. We already have something that's different from the game, but you know what? I actually like this change. I always found it such a shame that we never really get to see Heather interact with her dad all that much in the game. Here we actually get to see some really nice scenes between the two. There's a real father-daughter connection that I appreciate a lot. Like Harry giving Heather her jacket for her birthday, or them just kinda talking a little bit about the name he chose for her.
Why Heather?
It's my grandmother's name. You can change it if you don't like it.
No. Heather's fine.
I really like these new additions. Speaking of Heather, I think she's pretty good in this. It's not as good as the original, of course. I don't think that'll ever be topped for me, but I do prefer it to the one in the HD collection. Adelaide Clemens gives a solid performance that gets pretty close to what I wanted to see from a live-action adaptation of Silent Hill 3. Like this scene where Heather is introducing herself to her new classmates, and she's almost immediately like,
Okay, you know what? Let me make this easier for you. This is the 5th school I've been to since I was 11. So don't bother trying to remember my name because I'm sure as hell not gonna remember yours.
We then have our first real moment in the other world, where we have Silent Hill 2 enemies. Yeah, Revelation uses monsters from across all the games. Look, I know that's already going too far for some Silent Hill fans, but to tell you the truth, I don't hate this movie at this point. I think the directing is pretty stylized and gets somewhat close to the feeling of the game, especially later on when we're in the hospital and the apartments. There's a solid filmmaker behind the camera who has definitely played the game. There's some really cool attention to detail here. Like when Heather enters the aforementioned hospital, she looks at the map for directions and it's the exact same map from the game. Or how the first weapon she picks up for self-defense is a steel pipe. I also appreciate how the music is straight up from the game. I hate it when video game adaptations don't use the music from the thing that they're adapting. And the music is such an important part of Silent Hill to me that I can really admire the fact that it's here. It's not a bad adaptation of Silent Hill 3.
Now, the next addition to our class, Vincent Cooper.
Are you kidding me? I can't follow that.
Wait, Vincent? From the game? That's Vincent? That's not Vincent. That's Jon Snow.
We should stop.
Should set up camp.
Wait, Heather and Vincent are friends in this? That's a huge and bizarre change. What about Douglas? Oh, he's immediately killed off? What? So around 20 minutes in, this movie starts to heavily derail from the game. The basic structure is still the same. Heather goes to the mall, has an interaction with the other world, goes home, sees something happen to her dad, goes through the apartments, the hospital, the amusement park, etc, etc. But I'm pretty sure every detail has been changed. Vincent is now essentially what Douglas was in the original. Her dad doesn't get killed, but gets abducted. Heather also doesn't know what is even happening to her. She's completely aloof to the concept of Silent Hill and why it's calling her. The movie makes up this story of her dad telling her a burglar tried to rob them once, and that's the reason why they keep having to move and change Heather's name? I suspect this change was made in particular because on top of it being an adaptation of Silent Hill 3, Revelation also tries to be a fitting sequel to the first Silent Hill movie, which just ends up making the film feel very messy. You have scene after scene where characters will endlessly lore dump about the town and the cult and the history and the curse.
This order tried to cleanse her with fire, but they failed.
The Order are trapped in Silent Hill. The notebook said so.
It is possible for a few to escape just for a while, but it requires sacrifice.
Alyssa didn't die in the fire, but she suffered so much. And with that rage, her powers grew beyond all comprehension.
Darkness should have faded by now.
Why hasn't
So close to Alessa. Two halves coming together again. It's changing the world.
The absolutely funniest change to me, though, is the mannequin scene. In Silent Hill 3, there is this very small moment in a room with mannequins. It's completely quiet and dark when... You investigate and find one of the mannequins beheaded with blood gushing from the neck. It's one of my favorite moments for just how eerie it is, and it successfully makes the player never want to go back in this room ever again, because being here now feels uncomfortable and untrustworthy, which is a theme of the game in general. The movie also includes this scene, so let's see how they adapted one of my favorite moments. Alright, I'm just gonna ask the $1 million question here. Does this movie respect the original game or not? I think the answer is no. This is one of the strangest video game adaptations to me. It somehow stays so close and strays so far away from the original game at the same time. And that's Revelation's Achilles heel, because it essentially appeals to no one now. Fans of the game are gonna be disappointed at best and offended at worst. And people who aren't familiar with the game are just gonna be confused about what is even happening.
It felt like kind of a sort of a typical haunted movie sometimes. There were some creative designs. I've never seen a mannequin spider before.
Would you be surprised if that is not from the game?
That's not from the game?
No.
They kind of hint like, this is from the game.
Yeah. They do that a lot.
Yeah.
Where like they're kind of like looking at you as like, hey, this is from the game. Yeah.
If we're hinting at this, but if you saw the game or played the game, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Dad, wouldn't you like to play the game right now?
It's basically a 2-hour ad for the game. It was a movie.
Yeah, you feel like you're not gonna remember this.
Maybe. I'm not like a big fan now or anything. I do feel like it's better to be a fan of the game when you watch this than not to be, because you just end up pretty confused.
Yeah.
If you are not a fan.
Silent Hill Revelation is a bad movie that both fails at being a good adaptation of the game and being a solid horror movie. But again, it's not all bad. I kinda like Heather here. Some of the shots look pretty good, and I appreciate that the structure of the overall game was left intact. Yet, I can't recommend it at all. The editing is terrible. The film has consistently cheap jump scares. There's also some really 2012 dialogue in here.
What happened to the small talk? No, what's your favorite band? Do you Facebook? Nothing like that?
Fuck Facebook.
And some characters from the game barely get any screen time. Notice how I haven't mentioned Claudia yet, because she is only in the movie for maybe 3 minutes total. She doesn't even appear until like halfway through. I feel drained. As a big fan of Silent Hill, these 4 releases were a slog to get through. No wonder Silent Hill as a franchise disappeared for a little after this, because this is like a knockout punch. This is such a unique and special franchise that has been treated like dirt by Konami for over a decade now. That's really the only consistency here. Konami fucked up all 4 of these. Hijinks, Fatra Games, and WayForward are not the ones I think you should blame for these games being the way they are. Nor do I think MJ Bassett, the director of Silent Hill Revelations, is to blame for the way the movie turned out. Konami doesn't respect this franchise like most people do. And if anything, these 4 releases should make that clear. In that sense, it's a somewhat fascinating look into the mindset of a publisher who just wants to pump out releases in a successful franchise, and in doing so, almost killing their own success. Silent Hill is coming back though. It still seems like Konami doesn't really know what they're doing with it, since Silent Hill Ascension was a complete failure and the short message got very mixed responses, but I'm hopeful that the Silent Hill 2 remake turns out good. and I'm just really excited to see more original games from this franchise moving forward. All in all, it seems like Silent Hill is not silent anymore. The only one that needs to shut up now is Konami. So, Konami, let talented and passionate people continue to make these games. Give them the time and the money they need, and I can guarantee you that this franchise will return to the status it once had. There is still so much you can do with it, and after 12 years of this franchise being gone, I'm really happy to see it speak again. Because Silent Hill shouldn't be silent.
He spoke of torture games, so outrageously rushed. Just give them the time. This franchise can't end this way. We want a return, so we shout at the sky. Konami, look at what you've done. You have murdered your child in favor of pachinko.
Fuck face, please.
I'll kill you, you bitch!
We should set up camp. 12 years! That's how long you've been gone. Now that silence has talked, you can carry